Hello, what's up everyone? Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about another indicator video in which you guys have voted on Telegram, and it is the Average Directional Index, also known as the ADX. Alright, so because you guys have voted, this is what we're going to be talking about this week. So first off, let's talk about what exactly is the ADX indicator. So the ADX indicator plots out a line, and specifically three lines, which is the ADX line, the plus DI line, and the negative DI lines. So the math behind them and how they derive their values is not important because it's very complicated math. But what we are here to do and what we are here to learn is how we can use these calculated lines to our advantage and how it can help us in our trading. All right, so the math behind it and how it is derived is not important. So remember, so it consists of three lines. So first off, we're going to talk about the most important line, of course, is the ADX line, right? It's the main character of this indicator. So the ADX line basically plots out numbers, and it oscillates between 0 and 100, and the number actually just tells you the strength or the momentum of a trend. So of course, the higher the number, the stronger the trend or the momentum behind a trend. Now, it's also very important to understand about the ADX line, and one of the biggest misconception of people who don't really understand the ADX indicator is that the ADX indicator does not tell you the direction of the trend. So when it oscillates up and down, it's not telling you whether it's an uptrend or a downtrend. It is basically telling you the strength behind that particular trend. It can be up, can be down, it doesn't matter. The number tells you the strength behind the trend. That's all. So do not mistaken it as, just because the ADX line is going up means it's on an uptrend, and if it's going down, it's on a downtrend. No, that is a very big misconception, and we are here to correct it. Okay, so very important, it is to tell you the strength behind a trend. Now that is for the ADX line. Now, of course, we usually plot two more lines, which is the plus DI and the negative DI lines onto the ADX indicator. So DI in this case just basically means directional indicator. All right, so positive directional indicator means uptrend, negative directional indicator means downtrend. So by plotting these two lines are the ones that will be telling you if it is on an uptrend or a downtrend. All right. So how do we interpret the ADX numbers? As I've just said just now, the ADX number tells you the strength behind a trend, right? So typically, and this is quite subjective to different traders, but typically 25 is the minimum line where a trend is considered to have some momentum behind it, right? So usually if the ADX line is above 25, we can interpret it as signs of momentum or signs of strength that a market is trending or is starting to trend. All right, and if the ADX line is below 25, it is telling you that the market is either in a very weak trend or it is basically consolidating. All right. So of course, this is just the minimum line to tell you whether a stock is trending or not trending. All right. So typically above 25, there is some signs of momentum behind a trend, and below 25, it is typically viewed as complete weakness of trend or basically no trend. Right. So here we also have a simple table that can actually tell you what numbers of the ADX line actually tells you how strong the trend. So just to guide you through very briefly, 0 to 25, as I just said, 25 is the minimum, right? So 0 to 25 is basically weak or no trend, or basically consolidation, meaning it is sideways. Anything above 25 to 50, we consider it as a strong trend, means that it is actually starting to trend with some momentum. And then 50 to 70, which is quite rare, it is telling you that a trend has very strong momentum behind it. And of course, if it's above 70, it is telling you that it is a very extreme momentum behind the trend. And it's also, and typically it is very rare for the ADX value to a plot out more than 70, because that would be very, that will indicate a very strong momentum behind a trend. All right, so this is the ADX line and the ADX number and what it tells you. So let's talk about the other two lines, which is the positive DI and the negative DI. So these two lines are what will be telling you the trend of the market, whether it's uptrend or a downtrend. So typically, and very straightforward, if the positive DI line is above the negative DI line, it is on an uptrend, right? So very easily to remember it, the positive is above the negative, uptrend, because it's positive, right? Prices are increasing positively, so uptrend. And of course, the opposite is true. If the positive DI line is below the negative DI line, this means that stocks are going down more. Means that the negative line is above the positive line, means that the stock is going lower and lower and lower, showing you signs of a downtrend. All right. So with that said, let's actually just look at some examples on the chart, and let me just show you, how to use it to tell you the trend or the strength of the trend. All right. So here we have UWC. Okay. So first off, we have to pull out our average directional index. So you can just go to the left panel here, and you can see it's the second indicator on our list. All right. And you can see basically here we have three lines, and judging by the figures here, the blue line is the positive DI and the red line is the negative DI. So this means that the ADX line is the green line here. All right. And you can also notice that there are two horizontal lines plotted at 25 and 50, right? So 25 is plotted because I want to know when the ADX line has crossed over 25, to show signs of a momentum that the market is about to start trending, right? So UWC was a very strong trending tech stock in 2020. So let's look at their trend, like during their trend in 2020. Let's look at what the ADX was telling you when the stock was trending. And as you can see, after the March 2020 drop during the initial global lockdown due to the pandemic, the stock starts to trend upwards. As you can see, when it starts to trend upwards here, the ADX line, which is the green line, starts to go above the 25 line, which means that the momentum is picking up, means that the stock is actually trending, which it is, right? As you can see, it starts to trend very heavily and things like that. And notice something. Remember how the ADX line tells you the strength of a momentum? So I want you guys to pay attention to this particular area, right? So this area was an area of consolidation. And before this, there was a trend. So you can see from the ADX, during this trend, the ADX stayed near the 50 line. But once it starts to stop and starts to consolidate, the ADX line drops immediately, telling you what? Momentum is losing out. There are not much strength left in the market or in the trend. That's why during this consolidation, the ADX figure drops tremendously. But of course, because it is a lagging indicator, so it didn't drop much before the stock starts to trend again, in which later the ADX starts to point upwards again, because it is telling you that the market is regaining momentum and is beginning to trend, right? So that's basically what I want to show you, what the ADX does. And it's very simple. You can just see again, when the stock has finished trending and it starts to do a consolidation or a pullback, the ADX in this area will drop, right? Same thing as, we can just go higher. Same thing as this area as well. When it finishes trending and it starts to pull back in this area, the ADX once again drops. So that's the idea behind it, all right? So the ADX tells you the strength behind the momentum behind the trend, all right? And not the direction of the trend. Now, to look at the direction of the trend, we can see that during this uptrend, the blue line was consistently above the red line, where it only had a short crossover here, but because it's only a mile and very short crossover, we typically don't take much into it. But we look at the overall trend, the blue line was above the red line, which is signaling you what? That it is on a trend. And once we see that the uptrend is near a low, once you see the uptrend is near its end, and it starts to either consolidate, like here, it starts to do this big consolidation, we can see that the red and blue line, which is the positive and negative DI lines, starts to do a lot of crisscrossing, because the trend is not determined. There's no one fixed dominant trend, so it's not up, it's not down, so it's in a big consolidation, hence why there's a lot of crossover between the positive and negative DI line. All right, so let's look at another example. So for this one, that it was an uptrend stock, so let's look at a downtrend stock. And what's been downtrending for the past few months is glove stocks. All right, so let's look at Top Glove. You can see during this downtrend, the red line was largely above the blue line. So this tells you what? It is on a downtrend, especially in this direction. When it was going down and down and down, the red line stays above the blue line. Whereas if it starts to go up, make a lower high, then the blue line will go above the red line for a short while, because during this moment there was signs of a potential reversal. So the blue line was crossing above the red line, but of course the larger trend took its momentum again and pushed the stock further down. Hence why after this short crossover of the blue DI line, the blue DI line immediately crossed back downwards and stay below the red DI line. So this is basically telling you that the blue and red DI lines are what determines the trend direction of a stock, whereas the green ADX line tells you the momentum behind it. So as you can see, during this dump, during this downtrend, let me just show you. During this downtrend, it was quite a significant drop. Hence why at the peak here until this bottom, the ADX actually picked up, actually increases, which tells you that there is momentum behind this downtrend, which means that it is actually pushing downwards. So this downtrend wasn't a pullback, wasn't a consolidation. There was actually momentum behind it, hence telling you. And then if you combine the ADX with the position of the DI, it is telling you that it is a downtrend with momentum, signaling that giving you confirmation that a downtrend has formed and is happening at the moment. Right? So this is basically the very simple idea about the ADX. It's a very straightforward indicator. No need to complicate it too much. Basically 3 lines telling you 2 things: direction of the trend and the green ADX line, which will tell you the strength behind the trend. All right, so that's basically it. So that's basically all for today. The video is very short and simple, but I hope that it is informative and comprehensive for you guys to already understand the ADX indicator. So of course, as always, if you like the video and you like the way I share and teach about indicators, give us a thumbs up, and of course share our videos so that more people can learn about these many interesting and powerful indicators to help in your trading journey, right? And of course, if you want to keep up to date with our videos, subscribe to the channel. And of course, if you have any questions that you don't understand about my sharing, or if you have any additional questions about the ADX or how you can further use it to improve your trading, leave the questions all in the comment section and we will of course get back to you. All right, so that's all from me today, and I'll see you guys on the next one.